Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? There are a group of role-playing gamers out there which have created a style of gameplay that they're calling four-dimensional roleplay. My friend Same Old G did a couple of podcasts talking about this. One was more of a look and a bit of a critique of the style, and one was a discussion with a couple of the creators of this style of play. And so G asked me, "Hey Ivan, what do you think about this?" And I said, "Well, G, I'll tell you. I do have some thoughts and some observations and some critiques. What are they, Ivan?" Well, we started talking. I said, "You know what? Let me stop. Let me talk to some of our friends. Let me get my thoughts together, and I'll give you a video response." So here we are. First and foremost, though, I do want to say kudos to the people that put that style of role-playing together. Because, to be honest, in the role-playing game hobby, very few people ever really figure out what it is that they want. They're unable to describe it. Maybe they catch fleeting glimpses of it. Maybe they have it more often than not, but aren't quite sure exactly what it is or how to put it into words or how exactly they got there. Fewer still ever actually take the time to put together a series of behaviors and of procedures and techniques to get them exactly what they want on a reliable basis again and again. So, hats off to them for doing that. I've done that with a couple different groups, at least, with very different intentions. And it takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of intention, takes a lot of discussion. It's not easy. So good on them for doing that, for creating something for themselves, for describing it, and also for saying, well, hey, if you want this experience that we're having, here's exactly what you have to do to get it. So what is it? Well, as it turns out, they don't all exactly say the same thing, but close. And so there's various blogs and podcasts and videos and what have you talking about this, and they look at their own play and do commentaries on it, and other people's play and do commentaries on that and whatnot. So I looked at a lot of stuff and put together, got about everything I could find and put it all together. So what are the hallmarks? What are you supposed to do when you're engaged in four-dimensional role play? Well, the players and the game master don't engage in any out-of-character talk. The players stay in character the entire session. The game master stays in narrator mode the entire session, doesn't engage in any out-of-character talk. The game master does not move the players' characters around, doesn't rewrite the actions stated by the players. But likewise, if the players don't state that their characters are doing anything, well, they're just not doing anything. It's very active. It's very proactive. The players describe what their characters are doing in the present tense. The game master doesn't have a prepared story or a railroad or anything like that, but simply a starting scenario or premise. The action of the game is driven entirely by the players driving the narrative of their own characters. The game master can and should insert various complications or dramatic events into the situation at appropriate moments, but still the game masters direct the overall action. The players direct the overall action. The players and the game master don't talk about the rules or the mechanics at all. The players don't ask the game master any questions, definitely not any questions out of character. Their characters can ask non-player characters things about the world to find things out, or the players describe the actions of their characters as they're attempting to determine things about the world via these actions, or the players make up and insert facts outside of their own characters into the imagined situation to make things run smoother, etc., as long as these things make sense and respect the setting and the tone. These can range from items the character might have or that are in the scenario situation, to non-player characters, to contacts, to scenarios happening in the situation or outside the situation, adjacent to it, factions or nations, various other facts about the world ranging from the small to the large. The players and the game master are encouraged to make their decisions in a way that will be dramatic and exciting and enjoyable for the other participants at the table. And everybody at the table, player and game master alike, are encouraged to have very vivid descriptions of the scenes, of the characters, what the characters are doing, what they're wearing, what they look like, motivations, intentions. The more description, the better, in order to share the imagination. Now, this is a fantastic set of behaviors, procedures, and techniques to give these people exactly what they want and to give you that same experience. However, the things they talk about related to this style, the way they describe the other three dimensions, have a few problems. And there's some interesting things about the kind of effect that this play is going to produce versus what they say it's going to produce. So I'll go through them more, but there's four basic issues I have with the way they present the entire thing. The first one is the description of the other three dimensions. It can be very, very problematic. The second one is the assumption that play has only one goal, and it's the goal they have. The third one is the assumption that you can judge and rate a person's engagement and imagination and immersion by observing certain outside behaviors. And the last one is the claim that the style of play they're talking about is going to produce an in-character experience. So let's go through these one at a time and take a look at them. Well, the description of the various dimensions. Well, let's take a look at the description of one-dimensional play. It says, well, the game, in one-dimensional play, the players don't take the game very seriously. The players might just be there to hang out with their friends or socialize. The players are making out-of-character jokes. They're talking to, discussing things outside of the game. All this conversation is pretty much out of character. They might be distracted. They might be on their phone, checking Facebook, watching YouTube videos, talking to other people that are there but aren't involved in the game, but are, around their, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whomever, the person at the coffee shop. The players aren't really sure what's happening. If it's not their turn, they don't know what's going on, and there's a lot of confusion around the table. The players don't know the rules at all or very well. It's game master directed play, where the game master is a fully constructed scenario to entertain the players with a railroaded story. And the players are simply there to roll dice and are audience members and occasional participants in the game master's fully fledged story. Now, at first glance, this seems kind of reasonable. This is bad play, or, really lowbrow play. But a closer look and some critical thought reveals that all these behaviors are pretty much unrelated. The presence of one of these behaviors in a game group does not indicate the other ones are going to be present at all. And it's a false assumption to say that these things are coincident. Second dimension play, well, this is described a little bit different. It's described as slightly more interactive with the players. The players take the game a little more seriously and focus on the game a little bit more. The players might talk in character sometimes, but they still talk a lot out of character, make out of character jokes, all that kind of stuff, Monty Python references. Most interaction with the game master is the players asking the game master questions and asking them out of character. How big is that door? Can I jump from this rooftop to that rooftop? Does that, can that look possible? Is there a hammer in the room? This is referred to by the creators of this style as a guessing game. Mechanics and rules are involved in discussion very frequently, and the participants may open up the rule books, look up rules, and the players will often ask questions about the rules. So the mechanics can be very front and center. The game master still has a railroaded story prepared. The game master will often move or evoke actions on the behalf of the players. You continue to walk down the corridor. You go to Joe's house. Even if the players haven't stated their intentions. And once again, it becomes really, really clear that these various behaviors, well, they're really not coincident at all. They're not joined at the hip. Just the presence of one doesn't necessarily indicate the presence of another. I've been in and run games where there was no railroad, there was a starting scenario, and the players knew the frickin' rules, but it was very, very out of character the entire time. But man, do those players drive where we went. So they just don't all mesh. And in fact, they might have been talking to their friends at the same time, et cetera, et cetera. Now, third dimensional play is described as being identical to fourth dimensional play, with the one exception of the players don't create game reality outside of their characters. All of the behaviors listed for fourth dimensional play, like I listed at the beginning, well, these are all indicative of third dimensional play. And again, all those behaviors, they really don't coincide with one another. They might exist in some combination with any of the other behaviors listed in the other two dimensions at any given table. So, you can't really characterize any table as this, 1, 2, or third dimension, because it just doesn't work that way. And once again, the idea that out-of-game discussion never happens all of a sudden, and that there's a sudden leap from discussing things out of character and talking out of character to complete and total discussion always in character is more than a little bit silly and frankly, a little bit disingenuous. Anyway, on to the second issue. The 4D style, or thesis, I guess you'd have to say, it ignores the fact that there are a lot of other intentions for being involved in role-playing games. The model claims, or the thesis claims, that the description of the four dimensions are about layers of engagement, successive layers of engagement in the game, and successive layers of how seriously you take the game. but it really just assumes that there's only one thing to be engaged in as the end goal. They even talk about the idea, well, this is real role play now, third dimension and fourth dimension. And it declares that's the real where real role playing begins, and that people that don't engage in that aren't really role playing. But for decades there have been debates about, well, what is role play? And it's really evident that there are various facets or ideas of what role play is. Some people are just there to role play an archetype or a skill set. I want to be the face. I want to be the guy that flies the helicopter. I'm going to be the guy that beats people up. I'm going to be the guy that has big plans. That sort of thing. Some people might want to, they've got a character named Bob. They know everything about Bob, and they move Bob around like a token. He's a fully fledged character, and their role play is essentially moving Bob around. There are people more like me that want to be Terrence McSweeney, want to have that experience. So my role play is acting like and making decisions as if I was Terrence McSweeney in Boston in 1931, where horrible mythos type things are happening. Or other people could declare that role playing or decide that role playing is not actually being in Bob or Terrence McSweeney's head, but representing them, portraying them. Maybe in a very theatrical manner, but they don't necessarily want to be in their head or don't want to move them around like a token, but they want to, represent to you, who is this person, and act like them. Different people want different things, and there's different kinds of role play. And in fact, a lot of people don't want to role play at all. Once again, the 4D model or thesis ignores the fact that there's, a lot of other intentions besides the experience that they're talking about. And at the very least, it's kind of a thinly veiled statement that four-dimensional role play is better than other forms of play, which, means these other dimensions. Our style of play is better than the other thing that you want. And the fact is that a lot of people play for a lot of other reasons, including they enjoy the tactical situations, figuring things out, all that kind of puzzle solving and competition. They want to hang out with their friends and socialize and have fun. They want to have an immersive experience as the character without the necessity of making up anything outside of their character or making decisions because they're dramatic, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of other things to be immersed in besides the kind of play that they're talking about. So it's not necessarily that people are stuck in an experience other than the one that the 4D crowd is after. It's that a lot of people just don't want it. Now, on to the third issue, which logically follows that second one I just talked about, is that the descriptions of the lower dimensions of 1, 2, and 3, they're full of assumptions about the actual experience and engagement and intentions of the people involved in them, the people involved in play that's not 4D role play. And you really can't observe as much as you think you can by watching other people play. You can see their behaviors, but you can't really see the experience they're having or what's going on in their head. Just because somebody doesn't describe everything that they're imagining doesn't mean they don't have a really vivid and vibrant imagination, just because they aren't sharing it with everybody else. Likewise, it's very possible that people are immersed in and engaged in other aspects of play other than the kind of experience you're going to have in four-dimensional play. So yeah, that's another part of it. The fourth thing really isn't a problem with those descriptions, but it's more like the claim of the kind of experience that 4D roleplay is going to produce. More notably, the claim that it's going to produce more in-character play. And so I'll talk about that a little bit. I'm sure it gives them precisely what they want. So, once again, kudos to them for identifying this. But I don't believe they can produce in-character as character play. And in fact, even the description they have for third-dimensional roleplay can provide some problems for people wanting an immersive and in-character experience. So what the heck do I mean? I do have some observations on watching their play and the kind of experience they end up creating, but first let's talk about this. So certainly, for anybody that wants a really immersive in-character experience, either in the imagined situation or in the head of their character, in character as character, they want to minimize the impact of, let's say, like mechanics on the experience. They don't want to constantly be referring to the mechanics, and I've got a ton of videos talking about that. And going back and forth from being in character in the situation and discussing mechanics, well, that produces a switching cost. It gives us divided attention. However, for some people, not talking about the rules at all and the avoidance of mentioning mechanics while using them can produce its own switching cost. And for some of us, that can be even more taxing than simply surfacing out of our immersion in character or in situation to say the numbers, to say make a sanity roll or powerful or dice roll. This can actually be more disruptive to immersion in character. And it really depends upon the person. For me, a lot of times it depends on the game, depends on the system. There are those times when I'm making too many, there's too much translation going. Okay, well, what is the signal word for this? And what is the signal word for an advantage? And all these kind of things and blah, blah, blah. And there's a point where, like, let's just say what it is. It'll take less time, less mental energy. Because, let's be honest, our attention is always going to be divided. We wouldn't be human if it wasn't. If the mechanics are involved in the game, we're going to be paying some attention to that, whether we're speaking numbers or using signal words or whatever. Part of our mental bandwidth is going there. And depending on the person, it might be more taxing to avoid it and go around it, and more direct and less taxing to kind of just break immersion in a different way, to just talk about the numbers. In a more extreme way, there's can be some possibility for miscommunication, especially once more complicated systems get involved. Now, it's possible to invent a code language for just about any system, but you're still engaging with it. There's no real way around that. Now, a cynic would say that maybe sometimes the system in 4D role-playing is being ignored, but there's no really way to see that. I don't want to make that accusation. But, the more you get into that, not talking about mechanics, the more likely that is to be an option. I personally value clarity over uninterrupted immersion, even if we have to break out a character momentarily, just to be clear what's going on mechanically. So once again, your mileage may vary, but that can actually be a detriment to, the feeling of being in character and being immersed in a situation. Now, never asking questions, that can produce a similar set of problems. Now, certainly, most questions to the game master can be asked in character via interactions with non-player characters, like they talk about, or intention, narrating what you're looking for, what you're examining. I love the example my friend Anthony gives about, like, I run to the garage, and instead of asking, well, is there a crowbar in the trunk? You say, well, I'm looking around for a crowbar or anything else I can use as a weapon because I know this guy's behind me, and I'm pretty sure he's after me, and I'm going to want to whack him with it if he gets violent. So I'm declaring instant intention, and I never asked the game master, is there a crowbar? But I'm pretty much, still stating this question in a different manner that's actually in character. In real life, we use our senses and judgment all the time. And what we're doing, we're asking questions about the environment by looking at, by hearing, by making estimations. Can I actually make that jump from this rooftop to the other rooftop? And sometimes these questions that we're asking in real life are, how big is that door? Do I think I can make this jump? Does it look plausible? Now, in cases like that, players like me find that they're unable to make informed decisions if they can't get some more reliable information, about their senses and about their own sense of judgment. And for a lot of us, that immediately breaks our immersion in character because we don't have reliable information about the environment. So sometimes we need to ask some questions, or this ushers in the other issue, which is creation of game world reality. And this is the hallmark of four-dimensional role-playing, which I contend makes it harder and harder to have an in-character, as-character experience. For people like myself that prefer to have that experience, when you're responsible for creating game world reality outside the character, it can be immediately disruptive to the in-character, as-character state and gets you completely out of character. Now, this isn't due to being unable to make things up or not practice in making things up or being scared to make things up or hesitant. It's about that actual process being disruptive to the in-character, as-character experience. And to a large degree, it's a matter of scale. To state that I have a pocket knife with me, or that my old psychology professor is still in this town, and so he's a contact of mine, that's not terribly disruptive, because these things are natural, logical extensions of the character. They are now, the game masters to do with what they will. But I'm interjecting something that makes sense in that way. If I'm in a McDonald's, it's not disruptive for me to declare there are French fries and maybe a burger. It's not disruptive to my in-character experience to say that, I go behind the counter and try to pick up the mop or, unscrew the mop handle from the mop, like, Coming to America, or look for anything else that I can use as a potential weapon because these two thugs, the game master just declared that these two thugs have entered the McDonald's and looks like they're going to rob the place. That's not disruptive either, because I'm, once again, declaring things that should be in the environment, but I'm looking for them, and my intention is what to do with them. However, it starts to become disruptive to my in-character experience if I'm creating the businesses that are next door to that McDonald's, or there's a black car that just pulled up, or the black car where those thugs just pulled up and they walked in. Likewise, it's really, really disruptive to me if I start to declare what the environment does in response to my actions. So it's one thing if I narrate that I go over to the nearby telephone booth and I call for a cab. It's another thing entirely. It becomes much more disruptive to my in-character experience if then I narrate that the cab shows up to get me. Two very, very different things. So that creation of game world reality outside of my character, what makes sense for my character, outside of the extensions of my character, that really interferes with the whole idea of like action and reaction and interaction with non-player characters and with the rest of the environment. Because after a while, it's not really what you're doing anymore. You're not just interacting with the environment, you're creating the environment. In fact, part of the 4D model talks about the players interacting with the environment. And it's very telling they say it that way, and not the characters interacting with the environment. And probably wasn't their intention to say it that way, but it is in a very real sense. Once you start doing that, it's the players interacting with the environment. So all that makes having an in-character as character experience kind of impossible, at least for me. Likewise, making decisions with the intention of them being dramatic or exciting or entertaining immediately drives me right out of the in-character experience. At least, being in character as character. And once again, I'm not making decisions from the perspective of Terrence McSweeney or Philippe Moreau, or pick a character of mine, Leo Baxter. I'm making decisions based on what would be good for the drama, or what would be cool, or for the story. So what kind of experience does 4D role-playing produce, and what is it that they're actually doing? And this is conjecture, but this is kind of informed conjecture. Not my first rodeo. So I think they're having the exact kind of experience that they want. But what's really telling is the language they use regarding not asking questions and inserting things into the environment instead. They say things like the play becomes cinematic and flows better. You can skip interaction with the game master and just say, I'm going to pick up a big piece of driftwood that's on the shore, and now I can go straight to what I wanted to do with that piece of driftwood. Another one says, I think it's much more direct, much more cinematic, much faster, and you can accomplish a lot more in a session. Or you make up convenient things and things that make things richer, more fluid, faster, and dynamic. Over and over again, what I hear and what I see is that the flow of the game takes precedence over continuity or internal logic. Asking questions of the game master runs the risk of the answer being no. And the intention appears to be, getting an idea and then running with it. A lot of yes and. So the experience isn't play to find out or play to interact, it's play to create. There's a lot of portrayal of who the characters are in the plays I've watched and their discussion of them. And the portrayal of who the characters are seems to be more important than interaction with the situation. At least, the interaction with the situation is kind of in the background, and it's more important than interacting with the situation, at least not without creating the situation or the situation at the same time, or facets of the situation. And the other thing is it's highly performative. And I don't mean that in a pejorative fashion. I mean that they're performing for one another. They're doing things, that are exciting. Character actions, what's happening is supposed to be larger than life and descriptive and over the top. And, the description should be vivid and to fill the imagination of the other players, all the other people at the table. And all the decisions are made for these dramatic reasons. So it's very performative. It's very drama-driven and exciting. And things happen, and I get ideas, and so I do the thing. And you get an idea, and you do the thing. And we create the world around us, and we create the thing that's happening. We create something interesting and cool and dramatic. And the experience, can be in character, and seems to be in character to a certain extent. They're focusing on these characters. But not so much in character, but more in character as collaborator, to steal a term from Anthony. I did not make this up. Not necessarily in character as author, but more in character as collaborator, as we're collaborating to create a situation, a final outcome. And it seems very story as product driven. And once again, these are not bad things. This is just the kind of experience that this seems to produce. And that seems to be what they're going for and what they find exciting, which is great. It might not be what you want. It's not necessarily what I want. And it certainly, as described, won't produce an in-character as character experience for me and for a lot of people like me. So at the end of the day, it's not a bad set of procedures and behaviors and techniques for them to get the experience they want. It might be the experience you want if you want something like that. Good set of there's your instructions, but it won't produce the thing that I want. It might not produce the experience you want. It's not superior to anything else. It's just a different form or different type of role play. It might be for you. It might not be for you. But it's disingenuous to say that it's better or that it will produce a certain kind of play that it really won't.